Blimey, what a week. Here at MG Towers, we've been buzzing. The energy is off the scale, and it's all thanks to you legends and our procession of brilliant guests. We've had dozens of cracking voices on the show this week, from heavy hitters like Richard Tice, Reform's deputy leader, to surprise pop-ins, finishing off with a surprise visit from Jacob Rees-Mogg, and many, many more besides. We've had a few Mike's meltdowns as well, and you've been sending in gifts for what's in Mike's sack. The herons continue to arrive. Plus, world exclusives on the show this week too. Starmer still hasn't resigned. How on earth is he still here? And that's not all. Shocking Epstein files revelations, including reports of dead bodies on royal grounds. Those stories are turning heads everywhere. It's been huge, it's been wild. You simply can't ignore what's going on now every single day on the Mike Graham Show. And here, it's all coming up in the roundup. We are so back.
All right, get on your horse. It's Mike Graham's Roundup. It's Mike Graham's Roundup.
Let's talk about something far more interesting, and that's, of course, free speech, which is, again, something that Keir Starmer's trying to do away with because he doesn't like free speech. He doesn't like anyone having a go at him. He doesn't like anyone saying things that he doesn't agree with. But, of course, you never know what he thinks because he keeps changing his mind. As we said earlier, he U-turns and flip-flops more than a bleeding barracuda on the quayside once you've landed it from the sea. Unbelievable. Let's talk to Graham Linehan, who I think is still over in America, if I'm not mistaken. Graham, very good morning to you, sir.
Hi, Mike. Yes, I'm in Arizona. How's it going?
Top man. How does it feel to be in the land of the free?
Great. You know, I mean, I joke about it, but it actually does kind of lighten the mood considerably when you know you're not going to get a knock on the door from the police, you know.
Right.
So I've been writing a little bit more than I was able to in the UK. And yeah, I'm really enjoying it here. And it's nice and sunny.
Yeah, absolutely right. Well, you're well away from this place. I mean, it's literally going to hell in a handcart, you know, with every 24 hours that passes. I mean, I know that you'll have plenty to say, I'm sure, about Keir Starmer's wish to curtail our free speech. But how bloody useless is this government? Seriously.
Yeah. Well, you know, like the thing I always talk about with Keir Starmer is I remember when he ran, he said he was going to end the culture wars. He was going to end the Tory culture wars. And what he meant by that was he was going to hide from them and let people like Sandy Peggy fight them instead. Yeah. And let ordinary nurses like the Darlington nurses fight them instead because he's too much of a coward. This is how much of a coward Keir Starmer is. Not only would he not meet any of the women who have a stake in, the Supreme Court decision and the single-sex spaces that Bridget Phillipson refuses to implement, he basically just hid from an actual. It's not a culture war. That's a way of dismissing it. He hid from an extremely important debate around a social change. It's one of the biggest in living memory. I don't know if you can remember anything similar to people thinking there's actually more than two sexes and thinking that people can change sexes. But instead of addressing this and instead of saying, no, don't be ridiculous. Of course, women deserve fair sport. Of course, women does it need single-sex spaces? Of course, rapists shouldn't be in women's prisons. Instead of saying any of those very, very simple things, he hides from the debate, and ordinary women like Sandy Peggy and the Darlington nurses suffer as a result.
Yeah, absolutely right. And how sort of ridiculous is it that we have now kind of reached the point where if you don't recognise trans people for, whatever it is that they want to be recognised for, that you're somehow painted.
No one knows the demands still.
No one knows. No, I mean, I was watching, I don't know if you watched, I mean, I don't watch it very often these days, but I was watching Question Time the other night. And Fiona Bruce goes to the audience and says, let's hear from the lady in the beret, right? And the lady in the beret starts talking, and you go, it's not a lady in a beret, right? It's a bloke with a cock who happens to be wearing a hat and he's got some makeup on. That doesn't make him a lady. I'm sorry.
I saw that. I saw that too. It was very funny. It's just very funny the way they're pretending it's normal.
Yeah,
that's one of the.
But that's the bit that I
it.
don't. That's the bit that I don't get is that they're all sitting there like the Emperor's new clothes, and they're all kind of going. Ooh, ooh, ooh,
it's like, are we going to have a drag queen read the news before someone will realise that this is ridiculous? The BBC,
I mean, I'm amazed that hasn't happened yet.
The BBC treats drag queens the way Irish Catholics used to treat priests. They've created this weird kind of sacred class out of drag queens of all people.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And God love them. They saw a gap in the market, and they decided, no, I won't take cocaine till 4 a.m. I'll read stories to children. That's what I'll do, and I won't change my act. I won't change my act at all. I'll get a bunch of toddlers around me, and I'll tell them my name is Flowjob and Panty Bliss.
Yeah.
I mean, it's so insane, Mike. It just makes me. It's nice to actually talk to you about it, because sometimes you forget to laugh about it, because such an insult to women. All of this.
Of course it is. Of course it is. But it's the faux, as you say, it's the faux kind of reverence that they put on it, as if
Why?
Yeah, I know.
Why?
I know.
Why? It's like cross-dressers. They're cross-dressers. Like, I joined, I got sort of re-cancelled a few years ago because I joined a lesbian dating site, just to show that men were doing it. And they were invading these supposedly female-only spaces. And of course, I got into trouble. And it was like, oh, okay, so you have to actually do it with a brass neck. You have to actually take it serious. You have to actually insult lesbians before you'll accept them into these spaces. It's the most bizarre double thing. I was exposing these homophobic men, and I got into trouble for it. It's just, I don't know. Every time I kind of try and sort it out in my head, I come up with nothing. It's the maddest thing I've ever seen.
Yeah.
It really is. It
is. But in terms of your own career and your ability to continue to write comedy, for which I have to say you are absolutely brilliant. I mean, Father Ted, I'm sure people say it to you all the time, but it was one of the greatest and funniest shows of all historical time. But I mean, are you in a position, or could you write something along the lines of how crazy Britain has now become, the kind of the madness that has taken hold of the country? Would anybody commission you to do it, or would they pay you to do it, or do you have to find some kind of outlet on Saturn or something?
No, I don't think it'll happen in the UK, because, like, apparently Olivia Colman now thinks she's a gay man. Because
I was going to ask you about that. Yeah.
Yeah, and it's like for
she does look a bit like a gay man, to be fair.
When you have people like Olivia Colman and my latest colleague Amelia Bullmore, to throw me under the bus, they talk about this issue. Like, she did it recently. She said something like, Olivia Colman, something like, I don't really know how to talk to people who aren't kind to trans people, And it's like you are pretending, Olivia, not to know the issue. You're pretending not to understand the issue. You're pretending you don't know about Isla Graham in a Scottish women's jail. You're pretending you don't know about kids on puberty blockers. That's what Olivia Colman is doing. That's what all my friends have done. All my colleagues in show business have done over the last decade. They really are the worst bunch of cowards imaginable. If only a few of them spoke up, this would have all ended years ago.
Yeah, of course, and it's all for such a useless cause. It's just so that they can all meet in a room somewhere and not tut at each other for having horrible, ghastly, nasty, racist, bigoted views. It's all, pardon my expression, bollocks, isn't it?
Yeah, but they called everybody racist. They called everybody bigoted. They set standards that were impossible to meet. They imported a kind of fashionable form of academia called critical race theory in from America. Yeah. I mean, even in Ireland, hilariously, some Irish woke politician said that the Irish had white privilege. So that's where we are. We have a kind of bunch of clowns in government, in Labour. Like, Starmer couldn't even meet Rosie Duffield. That's how much of a coward he is. The whole
Well, he
party.
only just found out what a woman is, a couple of months ago, didn't he? I mean, he didn't know before that. Before he was
Yeah,
told.
he thought there was a percentage who had a penis. He thought there was a percentage who had a penis. This is the man who's supposed to be talking to China for us. Like if he can be bamboozled by a bunch of gender studies academics, then what chance does he have of working on the world stage?
I know. Xi Jinping penis. It's just mad, isn't it? But I mean, do you get the sense that in America, and particularly in places like Arizona, so you're away from the kind of, the Washington inner circle, you're away from New York, you're away from LA, which I suspect is pretty woke. Once you go to sort of states like Arizona and you hang around in places like Phoenix and you meet ordinary Americans, in the same way that when you meet ordinary Britons, we're all pretty sensible people.
Yeah, they have no idea what I'm talking about when I tell them. They're like, what? You tell them, no, they're actually, they're telling little kids they're the opposite sex, and they're giving them double mastectomies, and they're giving them drugs. Like Wes Streeting now is going to give 200, 300, I think it's 200 children puberty-blocking drugs, despite the fact that a detransitioner in the US just won $2 million in damages for what they did to her, and he's still pressing ahead with it. So you have to say there comes a certain point when. Sorry, I'm blabbering on, but I'll just.
No, it's fine. This is the show for blabbering on because we don't cut you off because we don't have to,
Well, I just opened a petition to try and find some kind of answerability for politicians who are putting men in women's prisons. I think Nicola Coughlan and John Sweeney and all the the Biden administration who did it, and anyone who's still doing it at the moment, they should be up in front of a Human Rights Council.
Yeah.
The Geneva Conventions bans mixed prisoners, mixing the sexes in prisoner of war camps. But now we're doing it in peacetime.
Yeah. Right,
So
and also, you're running the risk by saying that it's a bad idea of being arrested by the police, who will say you shouldn't really think that because we're going to have to turn up at the airport again and drag you off into a dark room and hit you with a rubber truncheon. I mean, do you worry that they'll still do that again?
Oh well, the police have harassed me for 10 years. They're part of the reason that my reputation went through the floor, because they were following the orders of a fraudulent man who calls himself by a woman's name, And they've been working for this very small group of men for about 10 years. And we're going to blow it all open. I don't know if you know this, but I actually recently crowdfunded for a private detective. And we're going to look into some of these people, and we're going to, do what the police refuse to do. We're not going to treat these fraudulent con men as a sacred class. We're going to expose them for breaking the law and for harassing ordinary men and women.
Good for you.
So if the police won't do it, we'll do it. And I can't wait to get them in court again. The police. I can't wait.
Because they're so hopeless, aren't they? And they don't do what they're supposed to do. They don't do what it says on the tin. They don't do the bidding of ordinary men and women who pay their taxes. Instead, they do the bidding of these bloody weirdos who want to criticise you and prosecute you for telling the truth. It's hard to believe.
The ex-head of Mermaid, Susie Green. You remember the tweets I was arrested for, the jokes, and the just things I said when I was pissed somewhere or something like that.
Right.
Nothing bad at all. Susie Green did a T-shirt where she had a list of names, including mine and J.K. Rowling, and they were all crossed out, and underneath it said "dead names." And she sold that T-shirt in her shop. We reported that to the police, and they refused to do anything.
Of course. Yeah, I know. Just ridiculous. You're getting a lot of support, as you would expect, Graham, from our listeners. Cute kittens there saying this guy's an effing hero. I'm loving it, by the way, because I've sort of similarly had my own defenestration episode from News UK. But you listen, it's quite liberating, though, to be out here now without having to worry. Because if I was sitting at Talk right now, where I used to do a breakfast show, I'd have one eye on the door because there'd be somebody standing there going like that,
Yeah.
you know?
Yeah.
And they don't do that anymore because there's nobody here to do that. You know, there isn't anybody at the door, luckily. Well, at least I hope not.
Just be careful. Just be careful, Mike. Look what happened to. Look what happened to Dan Lemon when he went out on his own. First thing he does is take part in the criminal invasion of a church. Just be careful, you know, if there was any producer who was holding you back in the old days, maybe hang on to him.
Yeah, no, true. No, that's a good point. It's very well made as well. What about the crowdfund scenario? Did you have an address for that? Are you still looking for help with it?
Yeah, but we paused it at the moment because we got enough money to take care of a few things, and we're going to do that before I ask for any more money. I mean, I don't know whether you noticed, Mike, but we call crowdfunds on the GC side a sort of second tax on women, because it's women who have to fight to raise money for people like the Darlington nurses, you know.
Yes.
And so I don't like to do it flippantly. We want to make sure we get real results, but we have some stuff at the moment that could turn into something. And we'll see what the police do when presented with actual evidence, you know.
Yeah, absolutely right. One final message for you from Mrs. Chapman, who says, Graham speaks to the majority of sane human beings. Thank you, and thanks for every time you've made me laugh. And Juice says this, is Mrs. Doyle still hiding in the living room all night just in case someone wants some tea?
Yep. Oh my God, such a long time ago now.
Go on. I've got to say that to you. Brilliant. Listen, Graham, great to see you. Have a great time in Arizona, and we'll see you maybe when you come back. Come and visit us, and we'll go and have a beer.
Yeah.
All right.
And thank you, and good luck with striking out on your own. That's great news.
No worries, Graham. Thank you very much, Graham Linehan.
All right.
What a guy, funny guy, really funny. And a man who's been through some ridiculous nonsense. Arrested by the armed police at Heathrow Airport the last time he flew back in because of a tweet that he basically said something about which people didn't like. I mean, it's just extraordinary, isn't it? Absolutely ridiculous.
Those decisions to take that line out were made in America. I know that the British side were not happy about it. I mean, it's slightly ironic because the book isn't published in the States by Collins. But I think it's just part of lawfare, the way that rich and powerful people use the courts to try and suppress free speech, not because the stuff is not true, but because people can't be bothered with the expense and hassle of fighting these cases. And I think that's a very worrying development. But I can take pride that the only two people who didn't like the book in terms of trying to issue summons were Prince Harry and President Trump. No one else.
Yeah, well, that's a good pedigree, isn't it?
Okay. On your book, do you believe that there is more problems of a really serious nature facing Andrew Mountbatten Windsor?
Absolutely. I mean, there was a lot of material taken out for legal reasons. I mean, all my Peter Mandelson stuff was taken out because no one believed it.
Really?
But there's plenty of material to do with financial irregularities, bribes, for example, in Kazakhstan, underage girls, and the whole national security question hasn't really been addressed. The fact is, because the royal family has no proper scrutiny, the Russian and Chinese secret services use that as a way to penetrate the establishment. And I think until we get more transparency from the royals, that's always going to be a vulnerability, particularly if you have greedy royals like Andrew and Sarah Ferguson.
Okay.
Interesting. Can I just ask one? So it sounds to me like you've got enough material for another book, Andrew.
I do. It's called Untitled.
And when's that out?
Well, I need time to write it and research it, but I would think within the next 2 years.
Right, so that's a very good point. Do you believe in 2 years' time that Andrew will be in a cell?
Well, I mean, certainly if he was kept at His Majesty's pleasure, that would solve his accommodation problems, but I don't think it's going to happen.
Well, it would filter through to your earlier theory, Kelvin, that he'll end up in a smaller and smaller sort of place of accommodation. As he moves from Royal Lodge to Sandringham, and he finally ends up in a cell somewhere.
How many books have you sold?
Well, I don't know, but it's clearly still selling, which is great. But I think I write books in an attempt to shift the dial, and I think we have shifted the dial here.
And
Very
in
good.
terms of the way that the police will react to this story, you said that it's probably not necessarily going to be enough from the royal family's perspective to actually say, we are going to help you investigate Andrew. But, I mean, will the police react, do you think, to this?
No, I'm afraid not. I mean, I'm afraid, we still live in a very deferential world towards the royal family. I think there are two laws, one for the royal family and one for everyone else. I mean, I've offered material to the National Crime Agency, who should be looking into this. The Met will say, we've looked into this and nothing to see, same old story. And I think until we have, as I say, those files released from his time as a trade envoy, we won't have all the evidence that could be produced to show how corrupt he is. We've got to actually remember, this is a story about financial corruption by a senior royal who was supported by and protected by the institution. I mean, that's a big story.
It really is a massive story, isn't it? And what about the American involvement now with the Department of Justice having all of these files, looking at them all, seeing what Mandelson has been up to, seeing what Andrew's been up to? Do you see them putting any pressure on the royal family to try and at least get Andrew to talk to someone?
Well, I mean, they can't put pressure on Andrew. I mean, he doesn't have to give evidence. I mean, and he won't. For 15 years, the victims' lawyers, there was a mutual legal assistance treaty, all sorts of people approached him, and he refused to cooperate. And he's not going to cooperate now. I mean, the only way he's going to cough up is if PC Plod comes and knocks on his door in Sandringham.
Do you believe that the children are, their relationship with their parents is damaged by this? Or do you think there's just PR they're putting out into the news site saying they're not talking to their dad or mum or something?
Well, there's a huge PR campaign to try and protect the daughters. The line is that, they're privately staying in touch, but publicly distancing themselves, appalled by everything. The fact is, the daughters knew all about this. I mean, money was fenced through their accounts. They received gifts from some of the dodgy people that their parents dealt with. And they're deeply involved. They were taken on many of these taxpayer-funded trips, paid for by the taxpayer with all the attendant security costs, built up a nice contacts book, and are now exploiting that in their jobs. So I'm afraid the daughters are pretty deeply involved in this story too, despite the spin that's been sent out.
And is that true of Fergie as well?
Well, Fergie's absolutely. They're Bonnie and Clyde. They're partners in crime. I mean, we know from the News of the World sting in 2010 that she was selling access to Andrew. It wasn't an isolated incident. This was a series of events where it was very openly boasting that he was using his links as a trade envoy to basically introduce people. We know, for example, that he was offered a £3.85 million bung to introduce a Greek water company in Kazakhstan. So, yeah, I mean, there are huge questions about Sarah Ferguson, not least under charity law, under the Companies Act. So she's a material witness. She should be giving evidence. She was staying in these houses. There are more numbers for her in the Epstein Black Book than for Andrew. And I think there's a good case to investigate and charge her as well.
Well, when you see stories like the one in which she is exchanging emails, Kelvin, with Epstein, suggesting her friend with a great body that you might wish to meet, or you might wish to marry, or you might wish to employ, you kind of go, that's just obviously one message of many. And let me ask you this, Andrew, in terms of what we know about obviously the underage girls that were on offer at Epstein's island and his villas and around the world, were there any underage boys involved as well?
Yes, I believe there were. Epstein was an equal opportunities employer, and he gave people exactly what they wanted. And if they wanted boys, he himself, I understand, had a sexual relationship with Lex Wexner. So he was bisexual, as was Ghislaine Maxwell. So yeah, it was the complete a la carte service.
Wow. And that means that Peter Mandelson was very disingenuous when he gave that interview to Laura Kuenssberg, in which he said, because I was a gay man,
great point,
I didn't actually really have any knowledge or was never told of any of the sexual misconduct because I wasn't interested in girls. I always doubted that because I thought to myself, well, if you're going to procure underage girls for sex, you're probably going to procure underage boys as well.
Yes, I mean there were a series of honey trap operations. I mean, it was all about collecting compromat on people to be able to blackmail them and to trade information and use this information. I suspect there will be. Well, I know there will be more that coming out about Mandelson. So I wouldn't perhaps take what he says entirely. I would take it with a pinch of salt.
Extraordinary.
Well, I wonder, is there there was one phrase that I saw you use, I think in a Daily Mail article, suggesting that there was a threesome between Epstein, Ghislaine Maxwell, and a British Prime Minister. Now, I took it that it wasn't Theresa May, right? So I wonder, and you said it wasn't Winston Churchill. Who was it?
Sued, but it is actually in the Epstein releases, and I'm amazed that the press haven't picked up on it. They actually talk about the orgy, and they named the particular individual.
Oh my gosh.
Wow. Well, I guess this is probably not the place to say it. If nobody else is saying it. But thank you, Andrew. This is fascinating stuff. So, in your view, there's so much more that could be being written by the press, but which is not being written despite the availability of information. Are you saying they're frightened of being sued? Are they frightened of upsetting people? What's the story?
Well, I don't know. I mean, clearly there's a lot of material to go through, 3 million pages. I mean, there's a lot of work being done by, in effect, citizen journalists on Substack. There's a lot of stuff in people's podcasts, for example. I had lots of stories about satanic rites and all sorts of things that I was given, and I didn't believe them. I discarded them. But we're now seeing stories of for example, 2 girls who may have been killed in rough sex, buried on a golf course. I understand Surrey police have approached the FBI about a story connected with Prince Andrew. There's bodies being found on royal estates. So this is getting darker and darker, it seems that what people are telling me may have some truth about it, because this was about 4 or 5 different people.
Wow.
Well,
I'm literally speechless at this point.
And what I can't understand about this is that there are so many different conspiracy stories, true stories involving the premier family of our land, that actually, what my suspicion is that journalists have become bored by it. It took 4 years of your life to put this book together. And I get the impression that most journalists today are being spoon-fed this stuff and therefore can't be bothered to spend 4 minutes looking at it. Is that your view?
Yes, I'm journalism around, but people are very lazy, and this is true about royal coverage generally. People don't do the legwork. I talked to 300 people, approached 3,000 people, and have, I only used about 1/10 of my material. Poor journalists don't have the time to do this sort of research, but they are being spoon-fed stuff. I mean, I've got a lot of stuff in my book, which still hasn't been covered in the press. Andrew's mistress in Mayfair, the mistress, Sonia Cooling, the Thai that he took on with him to Thailand. So there's lots of stuff that actually is in the public domain and isn't even being covered.
Okay.
Wow.
Well, thank you very much, Andrew. It's great. Great journalism, great book.
Fantastic journalism and an incredible story. And I look forward to the second book coming out, or the next book coming out. Anyway, Andrew, thank you very much indeed. Andrew Loney there. I'm actually quite shocked, Kelvin. I mean, I'm not easily shocked. He's talking about dead bodies on royal estates. Yeah. He's talking about girls being killed during rough sex, buried on golf courses. I mean, this is extraordinary.
Yes, and the reality is that we don't know any of it. And the problem is that we never believe it of the royal family. We just say, oh, it's just tabloid stuff. Yeah. None of this is true. I mean, for instance, the Sunday Times employ a royal editor, right? Yes.
I don't know what she does.
Yeah, but it's hard to know what she does because I'm not being critical particularly of her, but the truth about the matter is you could fill up the Sunday Times every Sunday from now until doomsday with this stuff.
News. It is the end of the news. Listen, it's a bit rough and ready sometimes on the old independent channel, so here we are at the Mike Graham Show. I'm delighted to say that Jacob Rees-Mogg has joined us for the first time ever. Welcome, Jacob, to the home of common sense, or as we call it, the real home of common sense.
The real home. Well, it's very good of you to have me on.
No,
Thank
not
you.
at all. Delighted to have you. We've been talking a lot this morning about Jim Radcliffe, and I know that you were speaking about it yesterday. I saw your comments on the Criminal podcast. But just before we carry on, and forgive me if you can't hear this, but I don't know whether you've seen Simon Jordan from TalkSport, what he said about it, because obviously he's a football man, and he is one of the few people in what I would call the sort of the woke football area who now is siding with Jim Ratcliffe and saying, well, of course he should be able to say what he wants to say, you know. And how ridiculous is it that Manchester United have kind of come out against him? Have a look at this.
United's website, meantime, celebrates the fact that Manchester is a city famed for its embrace of immigrants. Mm-hmm. So tell me, after you've heard Sir Jim talking on Sky News, what's your reaction?
So let's pare this back a little bit. I think the term of colonisation is probably clumsy. But if you look at the underlying sentiment, put aside the analysis that he's misquoted some figures. Because the population in 2000 was 58 million. The population in the UK is 70 million in 2025, which means we've had a 21% increase, 20 to 21% increase in our population. The population of Europe has gone from 728 million to 744 million, which means Europe as a continent has had a 2% increase in population. You then distill down the German population increase, the Italian, the Spanish, the French. No one has had a population explosion like we have. So to go to the sentiment about the population, irrespective of whether he said 2020 or 2000, he is right. The population explosion, however it's manifested itself, has created a strain on this country. Then you go to the sentiment of the open border policy that various governments have deployed in regards to people coming into this country, and you look at
Simon Jordan there, the co-presenter of TalkSport's mid-morning show, very successful, former owner, in fact, of Crystal Palace Football Club. He, unlike most sort of woke football pundits now, because they're all terrified of saying they don't like women's football, they're all terrified of, you know, anybody who might have an opinion about, you know, Black Lives Matter or taking the knee and all of that. But Simon, you know, very bravely, and I hope it doesn't do him any harm at TalkSport, has basically said that, you know, the word colonisation might have been a bit clumsy, but he has absolutely the right to say it, and he's not wrong.
Yeah, well, look, I don't know anything about football, so I'm the wrong guest for that purpose. But in terms of the conversation, mass migration got out of control. Actually, Rishi Sunak began to control it, except illegal migration is continuing out of control, and even legal is continuing at too high levels. So it needs to be controlled. Colonisation is actually a really interesting word, because if you think right back to the origins of colonies with Naples. Naples is a great Greek city in the Italian peninsula, and it is formed by people going there and forming a community. And what you see with new arrivals is that they tend to go to the same place and form a community. So if we're going to go for strict etymological use of the word colony, I'm not sure Sir Jim Ratcliffe was wrong.
No, indeed. Well, as we just heard from Rafe Heidelman-Q, he's got a new book out, which has come out from the New Culture Forum, in which he describes how, you know, the onset of immigration in the past 20 years or so has been so rapid as to change the face of many parts of Britain. And I know that there are plenty of parts of Britain, I mean, where you are down in Somerset, probably less to a lesser extent than places like Bradford or Rochdale or London. But these places have changed irrevocably, haven't they?
And that's really important, because there was this recent thing from DEFRA, one of the more stupid things DEFRA's done recently, saying the countryside was too white.
Yes.
Well, of course it is, because if you get an enormous demographic change, it always starts in towns and in cities and then moves out to the rural areas.
And is that because that's where the work is?
That's where the work is, and most of the people coming in tend to be less well off. They tend to be quite poor, and therefore they're going for, by and large, low-skilled jobs that are jobs within larger communities. There aren't so many of them in rural areas.
Right, and that's, of course, the great myth, isn't it? Rachel Reeves yesterday came out with Keir Starmer to kind of condemn Sir Jim Ratcliffe and his words, and she said that, you know, they were terrible, disgusting, you know, diversity is our strength, you know, it's made us richer. Well, quite
It's
obviously,
not true.
It's not true. It's made us poorer.
It's made us poor in a number of ways. GDP per capita declined in the last 6 months of last year, but also it's made us poorer because we haven't increased productivity, because we have imported masses and masses of cheap labour, which has meant that companies have had no incentive to add equipment, to mechanise, to automate, and it's kept down the wages of the least well-off in society. So immigration is fine if you are Rachel Reeves and Keir Starmer and you're earning £150,000 a year. It's great, it makes your life marginally more comfortable. If you're one of my former constituents living in Radstock and you're on the minimum wage, your minimum wage has been held down by mass migration.
Yeah, indeed. And, you know, when you sort of look as well at what Ratcliffe said, he was also talking about too many people on welfare, some of whom are immigrants, but an awful lot of whom are not. And you know, again, a very valid point to make that we're having a smaller and smaller group of people now paying more and more tax to support more and more people who are not making anything at all.
Well, Angela Merkel pointed out in 2012 that Europe was 7% of the world's population, then 25% of the world's GDP, and 50% of the world's welfare. And she said this cannot continue.
Yeah.
And here we are 14 years later, and it has continued, and all the European economies are failing to grow, other than the smaller ones that have been catching up. But Germany, France, and the UK particularly have not grown since 2000, effectively.
Right.
And this is partly because of mass migration keeping wages down, it's partly because of excess welfare, and it's partly because of our crazy green policies.
Well, quite. I was actually in Whitehall yesterday, and I walked past the Department for Energy Security and Net Zero and thought to myself, crikey, you know, that's a place I'd like to go into and sort of, you know, burn down from the inside. And
well,
just say, you know,
for a glorious 7 weeks, I was the Secretary of State for its previous incarnation,
Right.
and I was going to get fracking going so that we would have genuinely cheap energy that we are sitting on top of. It's not quite free, but the cost of extraction is very low. You can turn it into electricity extremely efficiently. I don't buy into this panic about net zero, that the climate's always changed and it is indeed changing, but we must deal with that when it happens rather than thinking we can stop it.
well, we have the most expensive electricity in the world, which is sort of hard to believe. You know, it seems ridiculous. We've got the North Sea. Even Tony Blair today is saying we should stop this ridiculous banning of North Sea oil exploration, because what we're doing is buying in oil and gas from Norway, who are literally digging it out of the same bed that we could be in.
Yes. It's the first time in history that governments have had a policy of making their peoples poor.
Yeah.
That high energy prices simply make people poor, they stop innovation. All technology is dependent on energy. Just look at this studio and the energy that it's using. Think of AI and the energy that is used to produce AI.
Yeah.
We need cheap energy if we are going to compete, and instead we've decided to become troglodytes.
Well, we discovered today, we've only been here about 4 weeks, and occasionally we wonder why it gets a bit cold in here. And the heating apparently is on a sustainable mechanism by which it supposedly saves energy by switching itself off. And I'm like, well, if that's really the business model, why don't they just shut down the whole place and not bother renting any space to anyone?
But this is completely stupid, because this is making people uncomfortable. And the whole aim of public policy, whether it's been kings or democracies or anybody, is to make the lives of the people they represent more comfortable.
Yeah.
This energy policy is perverse because it's telling people to be less comfortable.
Right.
Also, this energy stuff doesn't work, because what do you do when they turn the central heating down? You buy a little blower heater and you put it on and you warm yourself up.
Yes.
And then you suddenly discover that you're using more energy and more expensive energy than you were when they heated the place properly.
Exactly right. And to go back to the welfare situation, I mean, this government has many faults, which we'll also get onto in a minute, but they don't seem capable of forming any sort of policy around reducing the welfare payments that they're making and in some ways actually just increasing them. And the welfare bill is now so huge as to be unmanageable. I mean, how could it be reduced, do you think?
Well, you need a government that wants to do it and has a majority in Parliament to get it through. And we're now seeing that Sir Keir Starmer is perhaps the worst appointer of people in modern British political history. Indeed, probably ancient British political history.
Yeah.
I can't think of anybody who gets worse. He handpicked most of the Labour MPs.
Yes.
When Tony Blair handpicked Labour MPs, they voted for his agenda.
Right.
When Sir Keir Starmer's done it, they've all turned out to be hard left figures who don't like anything that he's doing and rebel every time there's an opportunity.
Right.
So it is the
Well,
incompetence
he'll blame the
of
vetting
government.
procedure probably,
Of
right?
course, he'll blame somebody else.
Yeah.
Probably blame poor old Chris Wormald, who
Yes,
seems to
indeed.
get it in the neck for nothing very much.
Well, and again, he's wasted £260,000 of our money by paying him off I know that he was a civil servant before this particular cabinet secretary's job, but he overruled the civil service. I mean, thankfully, once, the civil service actually stood up to him and said, hang on a minute, you can't pay this money out. And he just overruled them.
This is really serious, because although I think we probably need to move to a politicised civil service, we haven't. And by law, we have an apolitical civil service. And therefore, for the Prime Minister to sack the Cabinet Secretary is quite an important constitutional move and takes away one of the important safeguards in how we're governed. That it was frustrating as a minister that you found that the civil service didn't always do what you wanted.
Right.
Nonetheless, that's our system. And he's just blown up one of the safeguards.
Yes.
I think people should be quite concerned about that.
Yeah, it's a very interesting point you make, because I was always under the impression, and certainly I spoke to Liz Truss about this, that there were real difficulties in pushing certain policies through because the blob, as they're known, would put a great big roadblock in the way of it. But so is he now making it clear that that is no longer the case?
Well, he'll find it doesn't make any difference, because yes, there is a blob, and yes, there's a bit of a problem with the blob, but most of the problem is that Parliament's passed bad laws, like the Climate Change Act. So I find more often than not, civil servants saying, Minister, you can't do this, not because they didn't like it, didn't know what they liked or not, but because there was an act of Parliament that said you couldn't.
Yes.
And that's where, with a majority of 170, you can change things, but they can't because they're in office but not in power.
And you were saying to Camilla Tominey yesterday that, Keir Starmer, in addition to all of his other faults, has no real moral superiority or even moral kind of representation to make any judgment on what Sir Jim Ratcliffe said or what anybody else says.
Well, dare I say, we have just fallen for Sir Keir Starmer's strategy, because the Ratcliffe stuff is all a dead cat strategy, that he goes for somebody who's very well known, who owns a popular football club, very successful businessman, attacks him completely unreasonably to distract us from the scandal of £260,000 to Cabinet Secretary, of the fact that there's no Cabinet Secretary, there's no Chief of Staff, there's no Head of Communications. They've all gone. Downing Street is adrift.
It's rudderless, isn't it?
It's rudderless, they're mired in sleaze, worse than sleaze. David Starkey pointed this out to me, I referred to it as sleaze, and you know what David's like. He said, no, in his Now Uncertain Times, it's not sleaze. Mandelson is corruption.
Yes.
It's much worse. We should be using harsher words rather than sleaze, which we think is a dirty weekend. This isn't sleaze, this is corruption.
Well, clearly from his performance at Prime Minister's Questions, which I think was possibly one of the worst performances I think I've ever seen this Wednesday, where he attacked Ed Davey, for heaven's sake. I mean, I don't agree with Ed Davey on many things, but I thought he made some very good points. And he later kind of had a go at Kemi Badenoch, as if to say that appointing somebody to be ambassador to the United States of America, the most important diplomatic job probably in the Foreign Service, who is personal friends and has been for 20-odd years with a paedophile, a convicted paedophile, is more or less the same as Partygate. And you're kind of going, what sort of equivalence is that?
Cake. Yes, I mean, it's all ridiculous, but Partygate always was ridiculous.
Yeah, but to try and equate the two things as if they're the same.
It's absurd.
Yeah.
And I think you make the absolutely right point that Mandelson continued his association after Epstein was convicted.
Yes.
I think it's more nuanced in this peer who he created, who supported somebody who'd only been charged.
Yes.
And we do have the right in this country of innocent until proved guilty. And there, I think merging those two cases is unfair on Lord Doyle, is he called?
Yeah. Although I suppose you might say it was unwise of Starmer. Once the friend of Lord Doyle had in fact pleaded guilty to some pretty horrible charges.
Well, once he pled guilty, but that comes at a later. He's only at this point charged.
Yes, but nevertheless, I mean, he didn't have to elevate him to the House of Lords.
No, he didn't. I'm not defending Starmer's judgment. I'm the last person to do that. I think he's got terrible judgment. I just think, to be fair to Doyle, his behaviour is different because he was supporting somebody who, at the point he was supporting him, was not guilty.
Yes, no, I get that. I don't know if you've had a chance to read Tim Shipman's piece today in The Spectator, which is a very good read.
I'm afraid I get my Spectator in Somerset, and it's always late. I'm sometimes a week behind.
Oh, okay. Well, he's written a very sort of eviscerating piece, having spoken to a lot of people both inside Downing Street and outside, who have worked with Starmer. And I'll just read you this paragraph because I think it sort of sums it up all rather well. Starmer promised change, but the question now is whether he can change. And then this is a quote from a senior figure close to number 10. Fundamentally, the Prime Minister cannot make a decision, cannot stick to a decision, cannot implement a decision, cannot defend that decision when it gets tough, or explain that decision ever.
Yeah.
That's the Prime Minister.
I mean, we have
It's shocking, isn't it?
Well, you see, the thing about Keir Starmer is that he's essentially an over-promoted bureaucrat.
Yeah.
And everything he does is according to process.
Yeah.
But when you're Prime Minister, you are the process, and you have to decide, and he can't do that. It's like one of those computers that explodes because it's been overloaded. He's in the exploding computer phase of his career.
But isn't it extraordinary? I mean, I'm sure you know, as I do, many barristers and many lawyers who are generally speaking fairly nimble on their feet when it comes to speaking, when it comes to dealing with things. He seems incapable, and I always used to say this when he was leader of the opposition, he seems incapable of kind of inventing on his feet something to say. It's quite often there would be stories that would break when I was doing my show over at Talk at say 10 to 12 on a Wednesday. And he wouldn't ask a question about that story because he'd already prepared his questions and he couldn't possibly pivot into something he didn't know about.
Well, there are two different types of lawyers. There are the ones who perform regularly in court and the ones who deal mainly on paper. And he was clearly in the latter category, and therefore everything is very carefully prepared and done meticulously, but always done ahead of time. And the other thing is, the weakness of lawyers is that they're representing whoever they're told to represent. They're not representing their view of the world. And I'm afraid, having been a lawyer for so long, he doesn't have a view of the world, and therefore he needs to be representing somebody, and that was McSweeney, but McSweeney's now gone.
Right.
So he's got no client, effectively.
No. And people said when McSweeney was there that it was really his vision that got them into Downing Street. It was really his kind of campaigning abilities that got them into Parliament as the government. And now without him, there really isn't any point. So I guess the question now is what happens next, and how long has Keir Starmer got? I mean, I think everybody now agrees that, as you say, he's rudderless, he has no authority, he can't even run his own cabinet. The people in the cabinet seem to be pretty much able to do whatever they want. Angela Rayner yesterday came out and suddenly decided to attack his policy on hospitality. So what happens?
What happens? Well, there are two options, really. One is that this is John Major in the 1990s, and it just carries on being rudderless until election, and then Labour gets wiped out. And the other is that they are like the Tories in 2019 to 2024, and they change leader and have somebody who has no mandate. And that's really important, because all the candidates touting themselves around, other than Shabana Mahmood, who won't get it, want to move Labour to the left.
Yeah.
But nobody voted for a hard left Labour Party. And when it was offered to them with Jeremy Corbyn in 2019, they heartily rejected it.
Yes. And because Britain essentially is what a lot of people tell me anyway, is a sort of centrist electorate, if you like, which brings us on to reform and where they are. Because a lot of people say that they wanted reform to win, but they're worried that reform is now becoming part of the kind of mainstream political system. Therefore, because of that, they have to be slightly less right-wing than they might want to be.
Well, I don't believe the country is sort of middle muddle, fiddle-fuddle centrist. I think it knows what it wants, and it wants to be prosperous. And it wants not to be cold and poor, but to be warm and rich. And that means fundamental reform. It means Thatcherite style reform. Yeah. And I think the country's getting ready for that as times get more difficult. I am worried about reform, particularly how it's governing in local government, because it got in promising cuts. Yeah. And it's actually governed like all other local authorities always do. Their local bit seems to have been absorbed by the blob. And that's a concern, because I was hoping they would be more dynamic. But
is that partly because the system is so entrenched that it's difficult to make those cuts? I mean, like with welfare, we never quite finished that sentence about how you would cut welfare. How can you save money in local councils while, for example, social care is such a big problem?
Well, you stop doing the things that you don't have to do. You stop. They did in Kent. They again resurfaced the car park of the council offices.
Well, they said they had to do that for safety purposes.
There you go. But then they're falling for the blob, aren't they? Oh, health and safety. Oh, we've got to do it. It's very important. Yeah. They don't push back and say, well, actually, we'll just close the car park and save £30,000. We don't need it. Yeah. Councillors can park in the street. They can park it as the people they represent do, park in a local car park and pay the parking charges that the council puts up. Right. You know, there are always options. And once you're absorbed by the blob, you come up with these standard lines, we must do it because of X, Y, and Z, instead of saying, well, actually, we're going to think of something different. It's an unwillingness to think of different things. This comes back to welfare. There's one thing I feel very strongly, and that is that welfare benefits, out-of-work benefits, should be frozen for as long as the income tax threshold is frozen.
Yeah.
It is deeply unfair that people in work are getting worse off every year to pay for people who are not in work to get slightly better off or to remain the same.
Yeah.
And so that begins to cut the welfare benefit. You've then got to look at who is entitled and reduce entitlements. And you've got to make sure that work doesn't just pay because you're allowing people to keep more of their benefits when they're in work, but the benefits are not so generous as to make benefits pay.
Yes.
We've got to look at the whole system. I think the country's ready for that because I think they just see people who have made benefits a lifestyle choice, and they're very angry about that.
They are. And you've got to give people an incentive to work rather than not to work. But I mean, I've got youngish children, not so young anymore. One of my sons is about to leave university in May of this year. He's not very hopeful that he's going to be able to get any kind of job, never mind the job that he might want to have because of the degree that he's got. His degree is in music sort of management and, you know, you might term it a sort of a liberal arts degree type thing. You know, there aren't really any jobs for him to do.
Well, I'm sure a son of yours will be very brilliant and we'll get great jobs. I've actually got one of my sons with me. I've got Alfred with me today.
Welcome, Alfred.
Who's going to be 10 fairly soon. I should get him in to do the interview.
Done.
He'd probably talk much more sense than I do.
Well, we'll give him a job here.
Excellent. But that's right. The way the economy is being run, graduates are finding that they're not getting the jobs that they anticipated, and lots of people are doing degrees that don't then lead to well-paying jobs.
And they've got massive debts.
And they've got massive debt, which again I discussed with Camilla. And the problem there is the interest rate.
Yeah.
And the interest rate is a false interest rate. It's an unfair interest rate. I don't mind, indeed I'm in favour of, students paying their own tuition fees. I think that's a good idea.
Yeah.
They're the ones who benefit, and they should decide whether it's worth their while.
Yes.
But the interest rate is fundamentally unfair.
And many kids now are not, because his younger brother, funnily enough, who's 19 now, has decided he doesn't want to go to university because he thinks he's managed to get a job that he's really rather enjoying in London, in the sort of Westminster sphere, and he's already, you know, he's got a car, he's got money in his pocket, all the things that a lot of new graduates just don't have, and people at university don't have.
Well, I think more people are making that decision, and I don't think it's a bad one to make. I think universities need to be a commercial success for the people going. They also need to be a commercial success for the universities, and we've probably got too many badly run universities at the moment.
Yes, I think so. Because Tony Blair, again, put in the kind of the building blocks for education as a business and relied too heavily on foreign students, bringing more and more people into the country with more and more dependents who are all still here.
Yes.
Which was a really stupid idea. But finally, back to reform, because a couple of people had sent me pictures of calendars and things saying, you know, before May the 6th, people have to decide if they want to leave the Conservative Party and join Reform. Is that a deadline that you're eyeing up at any point, or are you looking wistfully at it?
No, I'm not. I'm not sure setting deadlines is a helpful thing to do anyway.
Right.
I've never by nature been somebody who, if you try and pressurise me, wishes then to fall in line with the pressure.
I'm a bit like that.
There's some term for it now. I've covered it on GB News on my programme. It's I forget what it's called, but being extremely stubborn and hating being told what to do now has a condition.
Well, I'm told that
I've suffered from that for years.
Well, I suffer from something they call defiance syndrome.
Very
which is
good.
Basically, anybody telling me to do anything, I immediately want to do something else.
Well, I completely agree with that, even if it's what I might have wanted to do. But I don't want to join Reform. I want the right of British politics to come together.
Yeah.
And I want to help that in any way that I can. I think we shouldn't be fighting each other in the next election. We should be cooperating, because the country needs real change. And to get that change, it needs a small c Conservative majority. And Reform's done well, but it hasn't made the breakthrough it hoped to make a year ago or 6 months ago of wiping out the Tory party. Ken Badenoch's doing much better. The Tory result is going up a little at the moment. We just need to cooperate rather than trying to knock each other for six. And I think the best example of somebody defecting to Reform is Danny Kruger, who did it with a degree of charm. And instead of saying everything he'd done in the Tory party was wicked, he said, well, actually, I still like my old Tory friends, and we ought to think of it in that way. I think some of the more recent converts made themselves look rather angry.
Yes, I guess so. But then so did the Tory party in some ways as
No,
well.
I agree with that. I don't think we behaved. I think we should have been more.
Bit more magnanimous.
These are good people.
Yeah.
They've just decided to do something different.
Yeah, right.
I think the attacking them for always being wicked people. Well, why did we give them senior?
Well, quite.
Yeah.
Exactly. A couple of questions are coming in for you. Ian says, please ask Jacob if there's any way we, the electorate, can get an early general election. Is that likely? I mean, a lot of people would like that.
A lot of people like that, but I think no. I think we should develop a constitutional convention where if you change Prime Minister, you should have a general election. And I've been saying that for some time. I think it's really important, actually, because the individual Prime Minister has a much more personal mandate than was historically the case.
And do you think also that people should have a by-election if they switch parties, for
Yes,
example?
of course they should.
So all of the people who went from the Tories to Reform.
Of course
Reform,
they
of
should.
course, will argue that that costs too much money.
Well, I think this is absolutely ridiculous. Reform is arguing that it's wrong to cancel the council elections in May, which I agree with them, but it's right not to have by-elections for people who've changed party. The truth is, people at the last election voted for a party and for a party leader. The individual MP hardly makes any difference at all. I think Philip Cowley estimates it makes a 2% difference, and he's the professor of politics at St Mary's University. I mean, he knows his onions. And so I think people who change owe it to their voters to go back to them. I also think, tactically, Reform would have won all these by-elections and would have been able to say, look how popular we are.
Yeah.
So I think the tactics are wrong, but I also think the principle is wrong.
Interesting. Final question, because Lord Viking is one of our very regular contributors. Does Jacob like herons? Now, that's the question. Now, you might have noticed that there's a sort of heron theme going around the studio. And the reason for that is that I live down by the River Thames, opposite Canary Wharf. And I came out of the house one day when I was in the midst of plotting this new beginning for myself to see a huge heron sitting on the railing overlooking the river. And I decided that that was some kind of omen. And I thought, because I've never seen a heron there before, I didn't know there would be one.
This is absolutely brilliant, because this is so like the ancient Romans, who were always looking at which way the birds went. And one of the cleverest things Julius Caesar did was made himself Pontifex Maximus, the high priest, which gave him the power to determine what the omens meant. And if it was not a day that was going well for him, he said, well, the omens say you can't make any decisions today.
Wow.
And he was able to put it off the next day. So I think you have a wonderful lineage to your loving of herons and your study of the omens of birds, the auguries.
Yes.
And I think herons are beautiful
Well, what's
birds.
interesting is that people from all over the world are sending me pictures of herons that they've seen.
Oh, fantastic.
We've got a couple of herons in. One complaint that one's actually more of a crane than a heron. When
there are lots of cranes at Canary Wharf too.
There certainly are. Amazingly, I don't know who's paying for them to be built. But one of the things that I found out was that in lots of different cultures, the heron is a harbinger of new beginnings. It's something that...
well, of course, yes. And the
bring
crane
you
brings
good
the
luck.
baby and all of that, yes.
It's all of that. So I
That's
thought
how I got 6 children. The crane just delivered them. It was quite remarkable.
That's incredible. Well, Somerset is a weird place.
It's not a weird place. It's God's own county, I'll have you know.
I used to live in Devizes. I know very well how strange it is. Anyway, listen, Jacob, great to see you.
It's an absolute pleasure. And I'm really excited about what you're doing. I think it is an exciting and interesting development in the media world, and I know you're doing extremely well.
We're doing really well, and we're very grateful to all the people watching us now. Record numbers again this week. More and more great guests coming in as well. So we look forward to the future with our eyes open and arms open as well. Jacob, thank you very much indeed.
Very nice to see you. Thank you.
Jacob Rees-Mogg, ladies and gentlemen.
Vision mixing, by the way.
Sorry? Alfred.
Excellent.
He's already preparing. Well, listen, we need a few more hands on deck. So the busier we get, by all means, leave school and just come and work here. And it will make it worth your while. Thank you very much to Charlotte, who's been here all the last couple of days. Thanks to Pooch, of course. Thanks to all of you. Laura James says, does the heron have a name? Don't start on that, because, you know, we get in all. We had Eva Heron, we had Hieronymus Bosch. You know, we've got lots of different things going on there. Heron Mirren, that was another one. Anyway, listen. We're joined by Ellie Hodges now. Ellie, very good morning to you. Should I introduce you now as the New Culture Forum's roving reporter? Because I heard the
Yeah,
other
of
night
course
that's your
you can.
new.
You can
That's your
introduce me
new
to
kind of
anything you'd
title,
like.
isn't it?
Yeah, I'm their new reporter, so I'm going
And
to
we've
be
got their
going-
book there because Rafe
Yes.
Mancu's coming in. We're going to talk to him about that, which is very cool. But you've also been picking up on some educational kind of stories. And I mean, this morning we've got this ludicrous story on the front page of the Times and the Mail talking about how pupils as young as 4 years old might be able to change their gender, might be able to kind of, decide that they don't want to be called he or she, and they might want to have a new name. I mean, it's just kind of mad. But you've uncovered another story, which you put out on social media yesterday, about some controversial classroom wording on terrorism. Tell us about that.
So this has come from a Year 9 student. So not a Year 9 student, actually. The parent of a Year 9 student emailed me and said, this is what my kid's being taught. I've looked it up and this is what I've found. And this is what they've said to me as well. And they sent me the links to it and I thought, oh my God, this is mental. And I looked at all of the screenshots and there's a website called TESS, which is the main website used for teachers to get resources from, so kind of slideshows for lessons. And this is what's being taught. So it's a lesson on terrorism. I think it's to do with a history lesson, and the wording of it is slightly interesting, I'd say. So the title of one of the slides are Al-Qaeda more terrorists or freedom fighters?
Hey.
And they give you sentences.
Well, that's easy, isn't it? They're terrorists.
I know, and they give you sentence starters. So Al-Qaeda can be seen as both terrorists to some and freedom fighters to others. In one way, Al-Qaeda are terrorists because in another way, they are freedom fighters. And this is being taught from the ages 11 to 14.
Right.
So this is right at the start of secondary school when you're very young and you're basically leaving it up to 11-year-olds to decide what a terrorist is, which is absolutely insane.
And presumably you could argue, if you were a parent, could you not, that this kind of could, in some instances, radicalise people into thinking, well, I quite like what Al-Qaeda are against, and so I'm going to go and join Al-Qaeda.
It's legitimising the argument that they can be seen as freedom fighters. So this is the bit I found most interesting, is one of the slides said that whether or not you see someone as a terrorist depends on what side you're on. It really is all opinion. And I thought, how are you telling 11-year-olds that it's an opinion if you think they're a terrorist or not? Because it's not. And teaching kids this young, and I understand some people, when I first posted this, said, but it's about debate and it's encouraging kids to think outside the box. And I thought, I think this is a bit too much of a sensitive issue. And it's leaving it up to, as I said, 11 to 14-year-olds to decide what a terrorist is.
Well, this is the problem, because, we live now in an age where everything appears to have become a matter of opinion. And there aren't any facts anymore, because, what you hear so often from many young people is, well, these are my facts. This is my truth. This is my, belief. And they say it as though they sort of own the facts, but you can't own the facts. There are certain things which are true, like you can't pretend that gravity doesn't exist. You can't pretend that, if you drive a car into a wall, you won't smash the front of the car up. These are things that happen. These are facts.
Or if you park in the wrong places, you get a
Thank you very much indeed. Yeah, that's a bit harsh. I'm already in pain over this. I got home yesterday and I got all of these parking charges. Anyway, never mind. But interestingly enough, Stephen Barrett, the barrister, who is a good friend of ours and he comes on our show quite a lot, he put a little tweet out underneath yours in which he said, the thing about Al-Qaeda is they are a prescribed terrorist organisation. So this is actually potentially criminal, what's being done here.
That's
because
the thing.
You can't encourage people to think that a prescribed terrorist organisation is in fact a legitimate freedom-fighting organisation.
Yeah.
That's
the thing as well, is some of the questions on this, challenging tasks, it says, for the students is, why is it so difficult to define what a terrorist is?
Right.
When are terrorists not terrorists? When do you believe that terrorism is terrorism? What is the difference between a terrorist and a freedom fighter? It's very kind of big questions for 11 to 14-year-olds to kind of tackle with.
And also in the background that we're now dealing with, where you see these pro-Palestinian marches going on all the time, when you see the Iranian marches going on too, and you see people who are generally speaking in support of free Palestine, and also it turns out in support of Hamas. They're also in support of a murderous, ghastly, horrible regime in Iran, because they think it's all legitimate, and it isn't.
No, exactly. And I think that it's just way too young to be teaching this kind of topics. And whilst they did, say the facts about how many people died and the effects it left, they still then went on to say, are they freedom fighters or terrorists? And I just don't think it's appropriate.
No.
I think it's a very heavy topic to have to deal with, and it's so sensitive.
Right.
And you have to go about teaching it in a certain way, and I don't think this is the right way at all.
And is it your understanding that this is part of the curriculum that Bridget Phillipson has kind of set out as the Education Secretary, or is it something that they've kind of at one particular sort of education?
So teachers actually have quite a lot of free will in terms of what they teach in many ways. So obviously a lot of it does come from the curriculum, and there will probably be something on the curriculum that says you do need to talk about terrorism, explain what terrorism is.
Right.
Yet teachers are it's largely up to them to decide how they teach it. And as I said, this website test, which is, I think it is actually the most widely used website to get teaching resources from here, and definitely worldwide as well. So teachers are getting it off there and then posting it and using it in their classrooms. And I think when you actually went onto the website, and if you searched up terrorism in the teaching resources website, the first thing that came up was this. So this is the one that's being used the most often, definitely.
Yeah, it's definitely strange, isn't it, that they should be doing it also without kind of any parental input, perhaps, or without asking the parents. I mean, I've always worried.
For this as well.
Yeah.
I remember, I can't remember, I was speaking to a teacher at one point, and they said to me that if a kid that comes out to them and says, I want to be called this, so they're basically saying, I want to identify as, whatever gender it is, they don't have a legal responsibility to tell the parent. So you could have
even if they're only 4?
Yeah, so you could have your child going to school and identifying as the other gender, and the parents not even knowing about it, which is ridiculous.
That is insane, isn't it? I've got this from Shazza, it's a super chat. There are loads of cat, dog, hamster kids in Kent classrooms. They've got water, they've got food bowls, they've got beds to sleep in. Woke insanity. I mean, I don't understand. That's really quite a shocking thing that you've just said, though, that the parents can be unaware of the fact that their kids are doing that.
The teachers don't have to tell them, and it's because the child has their privacy rights. But I think in that instance, the parents definitely need to be alerted that their child is identifying in another way. Because why are they deciding they want to identify like that? Is it because what the school are telling them? Is it because the school are pushing them in a certain way? Like when I was younger, I was probably a bit of a tomboy at some points. That didn't mean I wanted to be a boy.
No, right.
That's just I liked playing football, or I like doing this, I like doing that. That doesn't mean that I wanted to be a boy.
No.
And I think that it's getting so confusing now because teachers are pushing, oh, you can be another gender, blah, blah, blah. And they're bringing up these ideas way too young. And I think that if people just, wasn't told about it all the time, a lot of people wouldn't do it.
No, I think that's right. Because at the end of the day, children are very impressionable.
Yeah.
Because they're children. I mean, that's just the fact of life. They tend to be influenced by their peers. This is why it says here in the Bridget Phillipson sort of rule book, they're saying, this will only happen in very rare cases. But if you're in a classroom and one child decides to identify as a hamster, then it's almost guaranteed that there'll be another couple of people who go, I quite fancy a bit of that. So I'll be a hamster as well. We can all go into a cage together and just lie there, playing around in the sawdust, It's insane, isn't it?
And people say to this, when you start talking about this, you're transphobic. No, it's not that at all. It's just caring about children.
It's all about hamsters.
And also, I don't know, what would the word be for that?
What? Hamsterphobic? Hamsterphobic, I guess, yeah. I mean, bring your own wood shavings or whatever it is and, line the corner. It's very odd.
It's just not even about, being transphobic or anything, because I'm not. If someone says they want to be called, she or he or whatever, I'll do it because I can't be bothered to actually go out of my way and say, no, you're not, blah, blah, blah. I'll just respect that person's decision. That's fine. But when it comes to children, I think that's a whole different matter completely.
It really is. And when you're a parent, which I am, and I've had 4 children go through the school system in different parts of Britain and in America as well. You're giving your child to a school for a fairly long period of time in any given sort of week or month or whatever. And so it's sort of in loco parentis, they're charged with looking after your child. So what they shouldn't be doing is encouraging them to be something other than they are. Right? They should be discouraging them from that, really, in my view.
Definitely. I think education is losing its purpose now because they're trying to do too many things. And I don't want to be dissing teachers all the time because I think sometimes they do have the right intentions, but the way in which they do it is completely wrong. So it's like when they do all these, like, you know, anti-racism things, sometimes they actually have the opposite effect and they make people more separate instead of joining people together.
Sure. Well, look at what's happened, and I'm sure we'll talk to Rafe about this in a moment, with this statement from Jim Radcliffe yesterday.
Yes.
And the ridiculous kind of furore around it, as if, you know, he wasn't entitled to have a view.
Yeah.
You know, and that, for example, is something that you could argue is a fact. It's not just an opinion.
That was so interesting because he said that comment and immediately you had Keir Starmer, Ed Davey saying, apologise now.
Yeah.
Not saying, I don't really agree with that, but they have the right to say it.
Right.
And it was just like the outrage, I thought, was just ridiculous. It's
I
mental.
know. Well, I was watching, for my sins, a bit of Question Time last night, and I couldn't quite believe my ears, you know, because almost everybody on the panel thought it was the most disgusting thing they'd ever heard. And most of the audience, in fact, I don't think there was anybody in the audience who was in support of it, because they're all, you know, they always say, oh, it's an audience picked from the, you know, the representation of the electorate. No, it bloody well isn't. We know it's not, because they've always got all these lefties on there. And they were like, you know, this is not the Britain that we live in, you know, and, you know, you need to just go to certain parts of Britain. And they were in Bristol, you know, the People's Republic of Bristol, where literally the Green Party are going around, you know, knocking on people's doors and asking them to boycott Israeli products and trying to find out, you know, whether or not...
Yeah, there's something really dodgy about that, isn't there, as well? Because they were kind of like writing down, you know, people's names that were like not interested in it at all.
Yeah, that was in Brighton, wasn't it?
Which I thought was a bit... Okay, wow, so you're actually keeping track of the people who don't agree with you.
Yes, and putting them in some kind of register.
Exactly, yeah.
It's really, really worrying about that. Here's a bit of information you bet you didn't know. I don't know how you pronounce this. Is it cricketophobia? Cricketophobia. Or cricetophobia is the specific irrational fear of hamsters. I think Richard Gere suffered from that. Yeah, one for the teenagers. Sorry about that. We won't explain that. We'll just leave it hanging, as it were. Just leave it hanging. Anyway, listen, Ellie, thank you so much. By the way, have you seen this? Lord Petrolhead has sent us a super chat for 50 quid.
Wow.
Which will help go towards one of my many parking and moving violation fines. I've never seen more pictures of my car, actually. It's not quite nice to see. But the thing is, the pictures are all in the dark. So, of course, I can't see what I'm doing. You can't see the signs. You know, failing to comply with a prohibition on certain types of vehicle, motor vehicle in ground. I've no idea what that even is. I don't even know. I think, you know what I think it is? I think it's one of those bleeding low traffic neighbourhood things. Which, again, I'm pretty sure it didn't apply because it was only supposed to apply between 7 and 10, and I went up it at a different time. It's like you have to have, like, you know, a professor of mathematics with you driving around so you can work out whether you can actually go down the road. Unbelievable. Don't bother getting a car in London, is all I would say. Ellie Hodges, thank you very much indeed.
Thank you so much.
Where can people find your stuff? Tell us.
Twitter, I think it's Ellie Hodges 62.
Okay.
Instagram, Ellie Hodges. YouTube, Ellie Hodges. Just search up Ellie Hodges and I'll come up.
And you'll come up. Brilliant stuff. A latest update on the poll, by the way. Valentine's Day tomorrow. Have you got a Valentine's Day card ready for anybody?
Nope, I haven't.
No, good for you. I think it's a rip-off. Which of these sentences would turn you off your Valentine? 1, have you ever been to Sandringham? 2, come back to my island. 3, look at my didgeridoo. Or 4, how's about that then? Apparently, 28% currently, have you ever been to Sandringham? Which, of course, is where Andrew is hanging out. We'll do a bit more on that as we go. We're here, of course, until 9:30. I keep saying it's Friday. It's clearly not Friday, it's Monday. But it could be the big day. And we're going to talk to Alan Miller in a minute from the Together Declaration about what this day will hold for all of us. Because if it does turn out that Keir Starmer is going to resign, and I think he is, then there's going to be much rejoicing around the land, right? And it's got to be time. Have we got a little sting for this, Mike's meltdown? Oh, there we are. That's a terrible picture of me, but don't worry, I blame Charlotte for that. They said, get a picture of him looking angry. Look, here's the thing. So how long can Starmer cling on, is what it says on the front page of the Daily Mail. I don't think he can cling on for very much longer, and I'll tell you for why. Because he's now got rid of the one person who was his kind of pilot fish, his guiding light. You know, Morgan McSweeney, a strange name. It sounds like a pirate, and we used to make fun of it when I was at school. Morgan McSweeney will be coming to join you soon. He's got some ideas about the economy. Well, he's gone now, and I think it's really, really pathetic that Keir Starmer thinks that by getting rid of him, he gives himself more of a chance to survive, right? These politicians haven't got a clue. Everybody can see what's going on. Everybody can see that Keir Starmer just hasn't got it. He doesn't know how to be Prime Minister. He thinks all he's got to do is put on a suit and go abroad and go and hang around with people like Volodymyr Zelensky and Emmanuel Macron and that bloke Carney from Canada. And if he goes over to the White House and he looks presidential in the White House Oval Office, people will think, oh, isn't he impressive? Isn't he a great guy? Doesn't he represent Britain so well? And he is an international statesman after all. I mean, that's what his supporters say. But even his own supporters are now looking at him and thinking, you are, mate, a busted flush. You are completely and utterly useless. You need to go away and never darken our door again. Because here's what Keir Starmer's managed to achieve in the less than 2 years that he's been Prime Minister. He's managed to make it impossible for Labour to ever win another general election, right? Because who would vote for this shower? David Lammy, complete and utter numpty, right? Angela Rayner. She's managed to get somebody to come in and film her getting her hair done because she thinks she's got another chance of being Prime Minister, but she doesn't actually know how much tax she should pay when she buys a house. She doesn't know whether her council tax is payable by the government or by us or by her. She doesn't have a clue. You know, what about old Yvette Cooper? Completely useless, miserable woman, useless at everything she's ever done. Shabana Mahmood came in. She said she was going to stop the boats. Well, they're still coming, and she's still not doing anything about it. Who else have we got? Where's Streeting? The man who said that he was going to fix the NHS. Well, the NHS is still broken and it's getting worse. Only yesterday, Pat McFadden, the guy who's meant to be the kind of enforcer, the one they send out whenever there's a problem, he told another lie. He said, we're fixing the NHS, we're reducing the waiting list. We know from last week, the Times said it, that I've accused them of before. They're not getting rid of people from the waiting list. They're actually just losing their names. They're just chalking people's names off and going, you know, well, he's dead, she's dead, they're not waiting anymore. We must be doing something right. Yeah, people are dying because they can't see a doctor. That's what's happening. Meanwhile, you've got a foreign secretary who doesn't know where Iran is, right? Meanwhile, you've got a health secretary who can't fix the health service. Meanwhile, you've got a transport secretary who, thankfully, at least isn't pretending she's had her phone stolen every 5 minutes. You've got an education secretary who hasn't been educated. The whole thing is a complete and utter disaster. I think we need a general election, and I think we should have a general election probably before the summer. Mark my words, I've been right about this for 2 years. I've been telling you that these people will not last, and so it proves. And I think Keir Starmer will be out of a job probably by, if not today, Wednesday. All right? Mark my words. This message timed at 9 on Monday the 9th of February. Thank you very much indeed. Sorry about that. We'll fix that and we'll fine him, as we always do when he makes a mistake. Lucy Connolly's here with us though. Lucy, I always knew, right, absolutely instinctively, that you had been, one, given bad advice by your solicitor, two, probably had been given bad advice because they deliberately wanted to mislead you, and three, you were punished over and above any normal punishment that you would have otherwise got for what it was that you were supposedly guilty of. I mean, how do you feel about that now, knowing that that's exactly what happened?
I mean, I'm not shocked or surprised. I mean, all it's done is confirm, like you said, what we all, you know, any sensible person thought. Yeah. And it makes me laugh because you've got people, you know, arguing, you know, the lefties saying, well, you know, it was done by the book, that the Attorney General gets involved on a Section 19 of the public order. That might well be the case. But firstly, there's so much to unpack in that, isn't there? Firstly, why they're charging me on a Section 19 when other people are getting charged on things like malicious communications, things like that. Right. They charged me on a Cat 1A, which they never had the evidence to do so. They just pulled that one out of thin air. And that's what carried the higher sentence, actually, the Cat 1A part of it. And then why are they trying to push through an emergency sign-off by the Attorney General on someone like me on a terrorist? All the sign-offs and the emails from the CPS to the police are people in the terrorist department at the CPS. So yeah, it begs the question, doesn't it? Why on earth am I being rushed through as a terrorist on some emergency application so that they can remand me? Because it has always been my opinion that I was illegally remanded. And that was done on purpose so that I couldn't seek decent legal advice, so that my only option was to go with the duty brief and all of these things. You'll hear people refer to it as a kangaroo court. I've always believed that, and this just proves it, doesn't it? And from my point of view, it's a kind of like, well, for all you people saying that, I'm talking rubbish and I'm a criminal, this just proves what we've all been saying all along.
Yeah, absolutely right. And does it leave you anywhere to go, do you think? I mean, have you spoken to any legal advisors or lawyers who might say to you, what you might want to do is take the government on and maybe sue them for, wrongful, not so much wrongful arrest, but sort of, what you might call malicious prosecution?
I mean, lots of people have said that to me, but the way things are, Mike, and the current government, I just think I'd be, pissing in the wind, for want of a better word. I obviously had my appeal back in May 2025.
Yeah, I know, it's hard to remember, isn't it?
I know, and I should have won that appeal hands down. There was a really, really good case for me to get my sentence shortened. There was a really good appeal. People need to also remember that when you are granted an appeal, it has to go through a judge first, and that judge looks at your case and decides whether you think that you have ground. You don't just automatically get an appeal because you want one. Right. You have to have grounds, and a judge had agreed that I had the grounds, and then I had 3 Labour activist judges that sat there rolling their eyes and tutting and basically telling me that I'm a liar and my solicitor definitely wasn't, which I can prove. Again, I can prove otherwise.
Yeah.
So again, I should have won that appeal, and I should have walked from court back in May. But they came up with. I mean, as soon as they said, "Oh, we're not giving you an answer today. We need further time to deliberate this," I knew what the answer was going to be.
Right.
So I just think I've already tried to kind of appeal my sentence, and it was a complete waste of time and money. And it's money, Mike. These things cost so much money, and I'm in a fortunate position where people have helped me. Otherwise, we wouldn't have been able to do it. But yeah, I just think while this government's in power, while the courts and the judiciary are clearly politically motivated, it's just pointless. It's a waste of time and it's a waste of money. Maybe further down the line, it's something we can look at. But while, the judges and the courts are being so influenced by this government, what's the point? Yeah,
no, I get that. I mean, you must be feeling a little bit of sort of schadenfreude this morning, though, which for those of you who don't know the word, it's a German word for kind of, happiness about somebody else's misfortune. You must be smiling at the state of Keir Starmer's Downing Street hours. He wakes up this morning, as I said earlier, with his sphincter twitching, wondering how much longer he's got to go before he gets kicked out.
Oh, yes, I've got a spring in my step today, Mike.
Absolutely right. And I mean, do you think, I'm honestly, I'm at the point now where I'm thinking, when I hear he's going to get up and make a statement this morning, I'm not sure that's not going to be the end of it. He might just come out and go, I'm off, I'm done.
I think he's gone by the end of the week, if not hours. And for everyone saying, oh, yeah, but we're going to get someone equally, if not worse. Yeah, we are going to get somebody equally as bad or worse. But my theory behind that is let's pick them off one by one, and I hope their government comes down like a pack of cards. I really do.
Yeah, I think so. And, let's face it, if it all goes so badly wrong that they don't really have anywhere else to go, we might end up with the general election, at which point, there's an opportunity for reform. Nigel Farage this morning in the papers saying he's ready. Last week there was a piece saying that, he's only half ready, but he's now fully ready. And if there was to be an election in the coming weeks, I think, and months, reform would win it, wouldn't they?
Oh, definitely. And I think, is anybody ever ready for an election to take over government? I mean, I don't care what anybody says.
Yeah.
Nobody can do any worse than this government as is currently doing, or cause as much damage as this government has done in a year.
Yeah.
And that's coming from somebody that voted, Conservative all my life and is really annoyed with what the mess they made of things.
Yeah, absolutely.
And I think Labour exasperated the situation and made it a whole lot worse. So is reform and Nigel ever going to be ready? On paper, probably not. But I believe that if there was a general election tomorrow, I believe that reform would win, and I believe that they'd do their best that they possibly could to fix things.
Yes. Well, I mean, we can be bloody sure that having looked back at what happened in July of 2024, this government was certainly not ready, you know, despite the fact that they said they were ready to govern, despite the fact that Keir Starmer said how, you know, every single department was ready to go, whether it was the Home Office, the Foreign Office, you know, the Treasury, everybody was ready to govern. And it turned out none of them were ready to govern. I mean, bloody Sue Gray, right, who was the first Chief of Staff, whose task was to plan the first 100 days, only lasted 93 of them and then got fired. You know, so it was completely hopeless from the beginning. And I just think that, you know, hopefully the people of this great country of ours will learn the lesson, the hard, tough lesson. Don't ever put Labour in power again because they don't know what they're doing.
No, I agree. Look at the last time, didn't they leave their office and with a note saying there's no more money, good luck? You know, like... What the last time they were in, it wasn't good news, was it? Did the Conservatives do a good job? In my opinion, no, they didn't. There's lots of things that they did that I'm fuming with them for, but I certainly didn't get, you know, for me on a personal level, anything that ever horrendous that's happened to me and my family in our lifetime. Labour government have been in charge. It was the Labour government in charge when, you know, the NHS killed my son and then tried to cover it up. It was the Labour government that, you know, where I ended up inside, away from my family. So for me, Labour aren't good news.
They really aren't. And I mean, in terms of your life and how you're getting on now, I mean, you're a very resilient woman. You've come out the other side of it, seemingly, you know, not too badly damaged by it, which would have ruined an awful lot of people's, you know, psyche. You went into prison. Instead, you've kind of come out almost a new woman in a way. You've got ideas about prison reform. You've spoken to female prisoners and kind of supported them. What would you say now if you were able to say anything to Keir Starmer on his demise, on the way just before he buggers off, frankly, from Downing Street? You got a message for him?
I'd say calm as a bitch.
I love it. That is brilliant. Fantastic. Listen, Lucy, great to see you. Thank you so much. And
Thanks, Brian.
you know, I mean, we'll have a glass of champagne, no doubt, when he puts out the old podium.
Party at mine if he's gone by the end of the week.
Yeah, absolutely brilliant. Calm as a bitch. What the quote of the day from Lucy Connolly. Thank you very much indeed. Brilliant. Absolutely fantastic. We've got so much to do.
You've got mail.
And then you ask him another hour later. He's not in favour of assisted dying at all. You might have just noticed, by the way, that's our new postal address. For those of you who would like to send things to us, please do try and keep it clean as well. Suite 19.6 Exhibition House. Oh, look, we've got Mike's postcode. Look at this. I've got two. This is great. It's like Christmas, right? I'm going to open all this in a minute. Here's the address. Suite 19.6. I don't know who came up with this. Exhibition House, Addison Bridge Place, London. W14 8XP, and that is, of course, the United Kingdom. I'm going to save the big one till last, and I'm going to open the slightly smaller one. It's come from Amazon. We can have a look and see what it is. Oh, I'm glad I thought it was something rude. He checked. Oh, look, champagne and Prosecco stopper. That's brilliant. Because, of course, you know, when we do Plonk of the Week, every now and again, we need to put these stoppers. These are lovely, by the way. They're brass stoppers. No messing about here. For use with most bottles of bubbly, it says. Bouchon à champagne. Oh, that's another language. So I've got 3 of those. That's great, isn't it? Thank you. Who sent these in? Does anybody know? I'm not sure it's got a return. No, that's our address. There's no card. So whoever it was that sent in the champagne stoppers, thank you very much indeed. Could you maybe identify yourself as one of the 15,000 plus people currently watching the show? By the way, can I just say, this show is becoming so successful, we might have to start doing it in a stadium, right? So 15,000 people watching. There is no other breakfast show out there which has this kind of audience on YouTube, right? Not one. And in fact, not one of them even gets about 5,000. Never mind 15. It's extraordinary. Thank you so much. Right, we're going to try and open this big one now, which I don't know what it is. It comes from Hampshire, according to the return address. do forgive me for making such a lot of noise. I hope that if you're listening to this in the car, it's not making your ears burn or anything. Hey? Oh, right. Oh, we've got a Stanley knife. This is where you end up bloodying yourself live on TV. Here we go. Okay, that's gone. That's all right. Let's got that out of the way. Let's see. A bit more of this. I'm hopeless at this, by the way, so do talk amongst yourselves while I'm trying to open this. This could go on for a while. Yeah, no, it's fine. The comments can go up. I can probably read them as we go. Karma's a bitch, Starmer. What a great quote, by the way, from Lucy Connolly. So you've got anything to say to Keir Starmer as he prepares his resignation speech. And she just said, Karma's a bitch. Brilliant. Because we now know, as she declared, and as Toby Young has said, we now know that basically not only was she singled out for prosecution, but she was singled out for specifically hard prosecution. And, you know, she was punished far more than she would have been otherwise if she'd just been an ordinary citizen, housewife, you know, getting done for something. This is looking very interesting. I don't think it's alcohol because it's basically too light, I think. Sorry about this. You can imagine what it's like Christmas around my house, right? It takes forever to get into the open. Here we go. Coach is now going, it's a bad idea. I don't know. I think people probably quite enjoy watching me doing this, don't they? Or am I being a bit too optimistic there? No, it looks like a dog. It's a picture of a dog on here. It says Sunblogs Art. Could it be something for the... oh yeah, hand-painted, handmade original. Here we go. This is nice. Yeah, you see, I definitely don't want to hurt myself here. Where joy happens, it says. Here we go. Where joy happens, satisfaction guaranteed. Oh, it's a heron. Look at this. It's a heron. That's amazing. That is beautiful. And you can tell it's a heron because it's got an S-shaped neck, which, of course, is, yeah, have a look in the box. You can see that there's some legs in there as well. I'll show you how to get those out. Oh, here we go. This is great. I think that's how you do it. Yeah. Maybe it goes around the other way. Talk amongst yourselves. Here we go. And then normally speaking, maybe Pooch should do this because he's probably better at it than I am. Can you figure that out? There you go. That's lovely. Now, is there a card in here? Oh, there is a card. This is from Tina, who says, it's good to finally be able to send this to you. I hope it reaches you safely. After watching your first shows, I really liked the story you shared about the heron and your mum, so I wanted to find one that felt right for your new studio, something that might bring you good luck and remind you of her. How lovely. Tina, thank you. I would have liked to send this sooner, but without an address, it had to wait, and in the meantime, I see another heron has already made it into the studio. Well, technically speaking, it's not a heron, it's a crane. Thank you, Donald. Still, I hope you'll enjoy this one too and find room for him or her. I've followed your work for many years and I'm really enjoying the new show. Wishing you all the best for the future. You're doing great. Tina, thank you so much. So you put the heron back there, right? Looks good, doesn't it? Really, that's fantastic. Absolutely brilliant. And look at it, we're nearly up to 9 o'clock already. Now, coming up, I've got to do you my rant of the day, which is Mike's meltdown. I haven't even mentioned the Chris Packham story, which is on the front page of the Telegraph, about how apparently he's been accused of harassing huntsmen for hours and hours on end down in Dorset somewhere. He's got a bit mad, isn't he, old Chris Packham? We'll come back to that. Also, if you are in a position to send us a message, by all means, please do. Cookie Boy says, where's your head bag, Pooch? You didn't show your face, did you, Pooch? He went backwards, yeah, so he didn't need to put the bag over his head. I'll just check my messages and emails while you're opening your present, says Jammy Horse. Yeah, all right. Listen, it's a live show. What do you want from me? You know, the whole point is that we do things without any tricks, and we don't pretend that we've opened things before, and that's probably why on most TV shows they open things before they actually pretend to open them.
You've got mail.
Remember, despite all of the others out there, it's always the others. Don't be a pleb.